So I'm a big Steely Dan fan, and when I first heard the chords to Josie, I was like, what is going on here? I studied at Berklee College of Music, and I have a decent understanding of jazz harmony, but still I was pretty fuzzy on what the harmonic function of these chords were. So that's what this video is about. We're going to take a look at the verse section of Josie and try to make sense of these slash chords. So here we go. All right, so we're looking at the verse of Josie here. We're starting off with this E minor 7 chord that's being played by the guitar. All right, and the bass player is playing something like this. So we have pretty much E minor pentatonic going on, and he's throwing in some C sharps in there. So that's indicating that we're in an E Dorian mode. So E minor with C sharp is E Dorian. That's our home bass. So what I really want to look at here is the next part where they throw in these slash chords. And this is where it gets really interesting. So we have an A over D, so that's an A major triad over a D bass note. Then we have a G, a major triad over a C bass note. Then we have a D major triad over a G bass note, and a C major triad over an F bass note. This is odd because generally slash chords like this, the bass note is usually a chord tone. So for example, like if you have a C chord, you usually will see like a C/E, so like a first inversion of a C chord because the E is in the chord itself. But in this instance, we're dealing with a slash bass note that is not a chord tone. So in all of these instances, the bass note is a fifth below the triad. All right, so it kind of creates this very interesting and unique harmony. If I examine the chord tones that we're looking at here, so with the first chord, the A/D, we have a D, an A, C sharp, and an E. All right, so that is like a D major 9 chord without a third. But to me, it does sound, it has those qualities of a major 9 chord. If we look at it from that perspective, we could say there's a D major 9, C major 9, G major 9, F major 9. And right there, we can tell that we're not dealing with diatonic harmony because you never have major 7 chords that close to each other. There's a couple ways to conceptualize what's happening here. One is modal interchange, and I'll go over that first. The second version is thinking about these from a triad perspective and a 5/4/1 cadence. So let's start with the modal interchange version. So modal interchange, we're in E Dorian, and this first slash chord, the A/D, fits squarely in E Dorian because we have all these notes are in that mode. We have the C sharp still. And now the next chord is when it starts to change. So we have the G/C. And as we said before, we had a C sharp in E Dorian. Now we're playing a C in the bass. So now we're already stepping out. So the closest related mode to E Dorian that has a C in it is E Aeolian. So that'd be E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. All right. So we could say that this G/C chord is a temporary departure to E Aeolian. All right. Next chord is the D/G, which all of those notes are in both E Dorian and E Aeolian. So we can just say that we're still in the same mode. And then the last chord is C/F. All right, and now we've introduced another note that is not in E Dorian or E Aeolian, and that is F, the flat 2. And so if we think of that from a modal perspective, that would be introducing E Phrygian. So E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So we could say that that chord is temporarily moving us to E Phrygian. So that would be starting from E Dorian and then going into E Aeolian there, and then going into E Phrygian on that C/F chord, and then back to E Dorian. So that's one way of thinking about it. It doesn't really explain why it sounds so good. So I wanted to think a little bit harder and see what I could come up with. And so this is what I came up with. We look at the triads, because Donald Fagen talks about how he is putting triads over a bass note a fifth below. We can just isolate those to see what's happening. So we have an A triad, a G triad, a D, and a C. So one way of thinking about this is a 5-4-1 progression. So very common in the blues, for example, and other rock music. A, G, D is a 5-4-1 to the key of D. So A, G, D, 5-4-1. And then we can think about this D, C to an E minor 7 as being another 5-4-1. So D, C, G, because G is a relative major of E minor. So we can think of it from that sense. So I'll show you again. So A, G, D, so 5-4-1 to D, and then D, C, G, 5-4-1 to G, or if we throw the E in the bass, E minor 7. And if we look at the bass a fifth below, it's doing essentially the same thing. So D, C, G, 5-4-1 to G, and then G, F, C, but in this instance we're going to E minor. So G, F, E minor, which in a lot of ways, a major F major 7 to E minor is a really nice resolution point. So those are two ways of conceptualizing this chord progression. Let me know which version makes the most sense to you, or if you have your own version of thinking of this. Share in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe, share with a friend. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.